Zyra stood before her father, Emperor Valerian, expecting orders for battle. She had fought for his empire, blood for it. But today, something felt wrong. The throne room was filled with high-ranking officials, their faces unreadable. Her father's cold eyes met hers. "You are to be wed." Zyra stiffened. "What?" The emperor leaned back in his grand throne. "The empire is weak. We need an alliance. The humans have power, and they demand something in return." A chill ran down Zyra's spine. "You're giving me away." Her father's voice was emotionless. "It is necessary." Zyra clenched her fists. "To whom?" A figure stepped forward, a human in dark military armor, his sharp green eyes watching her like a predator. Captain Darius Kane, a well-known warlord. Ruthless, dangerous. Zyra's heart pounded. "You expect me to marry a human?" Kane smirked. "Not expect. It's already decided." Her own father had made the deal without her, without a single word to her. She turned to the emperor, her voice shaking with rage. "You raised me to be a warrior, not a bargaining piece." Her father's expression remained blank. "You will obey." Zyra felt something inside her break. All her years of loyalty, of fighting to prove herself, meant nothing. Guards stepped forward, ready to escort her away. She looked at her father one last time. "Don't do this," she whispered. He only turned his head away. Betrayal burned through her like fire. As the guards took her away, Captain Kane followed, his steps slow and confident. Zyra didn't look back. She would never forgive her father. Zyra sat in the cold metal cell of the human warship, her hands clenched into fists. The ship rumbled as it traveled through hyperspace, taking her far from everything she had ever known. She had fought wars, survived deadly battles, but now she was nothing more than a prisoner. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Captain Darius Kane stepped inside, arms crossed over his chest. His green eyes studied her like a puzzle he was trying to solve. "You've been silent," he said. "I expected more of a fight." Zyra glared at him. "And I expected a warlord to have some honor." Kane chuckled. "Honor? This is politics, princess. Your father made the deal. I only accepted it." She stood, stepping closer, her voice sharp. "I am not a prize to be won." His smirk faded. "No, you're a key, a powerful one." Zyra narrowed her eyes. "A key to what?" Kane leaned against the wall. "To keeping your people alive. The Emperor's enemies are closing in. Without this alliance, his empire falls." She hated that he spoke the truth. She had seen the cracks in her father's rule. But that didn't make this right. She turned away, her voice bitter. "And what do you get from this?" Kane stepped closer, his voice calm but firm. "Your father gave you away like a pawn. I don't need a pawn. I need a warrior." Zyra glanced at him, suspicion in her eyes. "A warrior for what?" His smirk returned. "For what's coming next." For the first time since her capture, Zyra felt something other than anger, curiosity. What was Kane planning? And why did he need her? Zyra sat on the edge of the small metal bed in her quarters. It was better than a cell, but it was still a cage. The ship hummed softly as it moved through space, a constant reminder that she was far from home. The door opened, and Captain Kane stepped in. This time, he wasn't smirking. He looked serious. "We need to talk," he said. Zyra crossed her arms. "There's nothing to talk about. My father betrayed me. You took me. That's the end of the story." Kane sighed. "Your father is a fool. His empire is falling apart. The enemies he fears, they're already making their move." Zyra frowned. "What do you mean?" Kane pulled up a small holo display. A map of her homeworld, Velmera, appeared. Red markers surrounded the planet. Zyra's stomach twisted. "The Xerix Dominion," she whispered. Kane nodded. "They've been waiting for the right moment. Your father thought giving you to me would protect his rule. But the truth is, he's already lost." Zira clenched her fists. Then why did you agree to this? Kane's green eyes locked onto hers. Because I don't care about your father's rule. I care about the people under it. The Empire may be doomed, but you're not. Zira narrowed her eyes. What are you saying? Kane leaned forward. I didn't take you to be my wife. I took you to give you a choice. Help me fight back, and we can stop the Xerics. Or refuse, and watch your home burn. Zyra's breath caught in her throat. She had spent her life fighting for an empire that had discarded her. But now she had a chance to fight for something else. Her people. For the first time since her capture, she wasn't just a prisoner. She had power. She looked Kane in the eye. What's the plan? A slow grin spread across his face. Now we're talking. Zyra sat across from Kane in the dimly lit warship briefing room. A large holodisplay showed the Xeric's Dominion fleet closing in on Velmera. Red dots blinked across the screen. Enemy ships surrounding her home. Kane leaned back in his chair. Your father won't fight back. He's too afraid. But you and I, we can stop this before it's too late. Zyra's jaw tightened. How? Kane tapped a control panel, zooming in on a hidden military base near Velmera's capital. This base holds the last fleet loyal to the people, not your father. If we can get to them, we might have a chance. Zyra studied the map. The base was well hidden, but heavily guarded. We'll never get past security. I may be a princess, but after my father's betrayal, they won't trust me. Kane smirked. That's where I come in. Zyra raised an eyebrow. You think they'll trust you, a human warlord? Kane's smirk grew wider. Not exactly. But they will trust you, if we make it look like you escaped on your own. Zyra frowned. What are you suggesting? Kane leaned forward. We stage a fake breakout. Make it look like you overpowered my crew and stole a ship. You return to Velmera, warn your people, and rally the fleet. Meanwhile, I bring reinforcements from my side. Zyra's mind raced. It was risky, but it could work. She stood up, her heart pounding. And if this fails? Kane shrugged. Then we both die. Zyra smirked. At least that's better than sitting in a cage. Kane chuckled. Now you're starting to sound like a human. For the first time, Zyra felt a spark of hope. She wasn't just running anymore. She was fighting back. And this time, she wouldn't lose. Zyra's heart pounded as the alarm blared through the warship. Red warning lights flashed across the corridor. She sprinted down the metal hallway, her stolen blaster gripped tightly in her hands. Behind her, Kane's soldiers played their part, shouting, firing harmless shots past her, making it look like a real escape. If anyone watching the security feeds believed it was fake, the entire plan would fall apart. She turned a corner and saw her target. A sleek human stealth fighter docked in the hangar. The ship was fast, nearly undetectable in space. It was her only way back to Velmera. A voice crackled in her hidden earpiece. Kane. Everything's going smooth, princess, but you've got 2 real guards coming your way. Handle it. Zyra didn't need to be told twice. 2 human soldiers rounded the corner, their weapons raised. They weren't in on the plan. Zyra fired first. A stun blast hit the first guard, sending him crashing to the ground. The second dove for cover, returning fire. Zyra rolled behind a crate, then popped up and fired again. The second guard fell. She didn't stop to think. She ran. The stealth fighter's ramp was already lowering. Inside, a single pilot waited, one of Kane's men, ready to help her escape. Zyra leaped inside, sealing the hatch behind her. Get us out of here, she shouted. The engines roared to life. The ship lifted off, rocketing out of the hangar. Explosions erupted behind them as the warship's defense systems tried to stop her. Another message crackled in her ear. Well done, princess, Kane said. See you on the battlefield. Zyra allowed herself a small smile. For the first time in her life, she was free. Now, It was time to take back her home. Zyra gripped the ship's controls as Velmera came into view. Her homeworld looked the same from space, its golden clouds and shimmering oceans. But she knew the truth. It wasn't the same. Not anymore. The Xerix Dominion had arrived. Her heart clenched as she spotted their massive warships floating above the capital. Smoke rose from the city. The palace, her former home, looked damaged but still standing. The pilot beside her spoke. "We're coming in fast. The Loyalist base is just outside the city. If we land too close, we risk getting shot down." Zyra nodded. "Take us down where they'll see us, but not attack on sight." The ship descended into the thick atmosphere, dodging patrol drones. Alarms beeped. Enemy scanners had picked them up. Zyra clenched her fists, expecting fire. But no shots came. Instead, a voice crackled through the comms. "Unidentified vessel, state your purpose." Zyra took a deep breath. "This is Princess Zyra of House Velmera. I have escaped captivity and returned to fight for my people." Silence. Then, "Prove it." Zyra's mind raced. They wouldn't just take her word for it. Then she realized her mother's words from long ago. A code phrase meant only for the royal family. She spoke in her native tongue. "Stars may fall, but the people will rise." Another long silence. Then the voice returned, now filled with emotion. "Princess, you're alive." The ship's scanners showed the Loyalist base ahead. The gates opened. Fighters and ground troops scrambled as they prepared for her arrival. Zyra felt a lump in her throat. She had made it back, but there was no time to celebrate. She stepped out of the ship, and the soldiers stared in shock. "The princess has returned," someone shouted. The crowd erupted in cheers, but Zyra raised a hand. "Enough. The Xerix are here, and my father has abandoned you. But I have not. We fight. Now." The soldiers stiffened, then saluted. One of the commanders stepped forward. "We thought all hope was lost. But if you're with us, we will fight to the last." Zyra nodded. She wasn't the weak princess they once knew. She was ready for war. Zyra stood on the war room balcony, overlooking the Loyalist base. Soldiers moved with purpose, preparing weapons, fueling fighters, and setting up defenses. The battle was coming. A hologram flickered to life in front of her. Kane. His warship was in orbit, hidden behind Velmera's moon. "Nice speech, princess," he said with a smirk. "Your people are fired up. But are they ready?" Zyra's jaw tightened. "They don't have a choice." Kane chuckled. "That's the spirit. The Xerix fleet is preparing their final assault. If we don't hit first, we'll be crushed." Zyra turned to the commanders. "How many ships do we have?" "Not enough," one admitted. "But we know the terrain better than they do." Kane's voice came through again. "I'll handle the sky. You take the ground. If we time this right, we can break their blockade and push them out." Zyra took a deep breath. It was now or never. She stepped onto the main platform, where thousands of soldiers waited. All eyes were on her. "For too long, we have lived in fear," she shouted. "For too long, we have been ruled by cowards and traitors. But today, we take back our world." The crowd roared. Zyra turned to her generals. "Launch the attack." The ground shook as missiles fired from the base, streaking toward the Xerix ships. Fighters roared into the sky, engaging the enemy in a deadly dance of fire and steel. Explosions erupted above the city as Kane's fleet arrived, weapons blazing. Zyra grabbed a rifle and sprinted toward the front lines. She wasn't just a princess anymore. She was a warrior. Blaster fire rained down as she led her troops into the battle. The Xerix soldiers were strong, but her people were stronger. Hours passed like a blur of chaos, screams, and burning wreckage. Then, finally, silence. The enemy was retreating. The capital was theirs again. Zyra stood in the ruins of the palace, breathing hard. She looked up as a ship landed nearby. Kane stepping out, his armor scratched but his smirk intact. "Not bad, princess," he said. "Told you humans weren't so bad." Sarah chuckled, exhausted but victorious. "Maybe you were right." She turned to her people. "Today, we reclaim our world. Tomorrow, we make sure no one ever takes it from us again." The war was over, but her new life was just beginning.